Blinkit billboards aren't a billboard experiment.
How are they able to predict demand? They saw a very high uptake for cow dung.
I'm very lost. Another thing, a very secret thing that most people don't know. The co-founder of Zomato, Deepinder Goyal, recently said that Blinkit is going to be bigger than Zomato in just a year's time. What's mind-boggling is that until just a year back, Blinkit encountered major struggles, from shutting down dark stores to delivering lesser orders in general. But as of 2024, Blinkit has managed to capture the lion's share of the market, standing at a whopping 45%. And in today's episode, we'll discuss Blinkit's core marketing and product strategies, help it grow and thrive in such a competitive market. So, Rakshit, for the listeners and also for you, I'm just going to pull up some quick statistics on how Blinkit is doing so far, and actually received this as a PDF from their team, and they pulled these numbers up from their GA4. So they currently have almost 14 million monthly active users. They have an average order value of 607 rupees, and that's honestly mind blowing. And they also have a weekly retention rate of 50% on their app. I mean, what are your thoughts on these statistics?
Those are numbers which are unheard of in the consumer internet space, right? It's very difficult to get a 50% weekly retention rate.
And what's weird is that until a year back, most of us were like hearing the quick commerce is sort of dying down, and now Blinkit is leading the whole game. Which is with pretty stellar numbers, right? So at this point, I'm sort of wondering how Blinkit happened to crack the product end of things, at least because you're the expert here as a product manager. Would love to hear your thoughts.
Whenever we are looking at any product, we first need to identify what kind of a user it is and what is the natural frequency of this kind of a product, right? So talking about the user base, right? So I think according to a Bloom study, there are approximately 30 million households in India which have an average annual income of more than $15,000. I think though that is the target segment which essentially Blinkit or any quick commerce company would essentially want to target, right? This is called the Indian Mexico. That's the term given to this kind of a segment. It's the highest quality of customers that you can get on any platform, right? And 1.4 million users or 1.4 million downloads that Blinkit has is essentially coming from this segment, right? Now, the way quick commerce essentially makes money is actually very different from all other e-commerce platforms, right? Which essentially... You would essentially order from Amazon or from Flipkart maybe once a month, twice a month, 3-4 times a month. But the way quick commerce economics actually makes sense, only makes sense when there is a repeat rate. There is a continuous repeat rate. According to Blinkit, their dark stores economics only make sense once they reach a throughput of 1,000 orders per day. If they don't reach to 1,000 orders per day, the economics just won't make sense, and it would essentially take them a lot of time to recover the costs related to the dark stores, right? So this whole game is about continuous deliveries, because this is targeting a very small segment of the population. They need to essentially double down on the repeat rates. Now, there are 3 things that Blinkit has been able to do pretty well, right? The first is repeat rates, which is essentially retention. The second is that they've been able to crack high average order value. And the third is that they've been able to crack curating festivals very, very, very amazing. The first is the repeat rate of the retention. Now, typically, how quick commerce essentially works is that people start using it for the groceries, and then you can sort of upsell the user with different things or different SKUs, right? Right. And this kind of a service only makes sense for the products for which there is an immediate demand. So, for example, you're living in Bangalore alone, right? Let's say your mate doesn't come. What's the go-to thing that you would essentially go to, right? It would probably be Maggie, or it would probably be a ready to eat thing, right?
True.
Now, if that thing doesn't exist in a quick commerce company or a dark store at that particular point in time, you would not order from there, right? Similarly, let's say तेको आज पनीर खाना है, right? और पनीर नहीं है किसी dark store में, so it's not like you'll be like कि okay, there's no paneer, but let me just order bhindi or something like that, right? You would so this service is essentially only makes sense. There is a large variety of SKUs that people want to consume at that particular point in time, right? And what Blinkit has been able to crack very well is that currently in each of their dark stores, they have approximately 6,500 SKUs, right? That's an insane number if you consider all of its competitors, which have a much lower SKU rate, right?
That's so true, because I've used Blinkit number of times when I didn't find my let's say whatever I was looking for on, let's say, Swiggy or Zepto, and I've always been more of a Swiggy user since beginning for whatever reasons. But because I think Blinkit has so much more variety of products, it becomes much easier for people to sort of shift onto that platform.
So there are a couple of things that they have done right over here, right? The first is that I personally started using Blinkit because I was just binging on Shark Tank season 1 a couple of years back. There was this protein ice cream brand which I wanted to taste, right? And I went to Amazon, I went to Flipkart, and it was taking like 2-3 days for it to deliver. Now, I did not want to wait for that long, so I just casually browsed on Blinkit. And luckily enough, I found it. So I was like, okay, cool, let me just try it. And I got it. And that's how it got me hooked. So what they've done very well over the years is that they've seen this massive wave of new D2C brands which have come, right? There are a couple of brands like Tags, the Whole Truth Food, which are on quick commerce, and I only buy it from there. Ab agar tu majority of the demand from this set of customers that we talked about is they're heavy users of YouTube, they're heavy users of Instagram, right? Now, when you see something on Instagram and you find something interesting, you want to essentially see whether you can use that product. And because there is an impulse buy with the quick commerce, right? You are able to consume these products much faster, right? Out of 100% of their SKUs, right? Out of 100 SKUs that they have, 65% of them are beauty and personal care, which is quite amazing if you think about it, because unlike Zepto or unlike Swiggy Instamart, what they've been able to crack is grocery delivering, right? Which has a natural shelf life of a couple of days only. Again, 7-8 days. Products, perishable products, right? And obviously there is some amount of impulse buying which happens over there. But if you really think about it, there are a lot of non-perishable items for which there is an impulse buy. For example, a lot of times when I forget to shave, right, I don't want to travel to a store near me and get a shaving kit or something like that. What I would rather do is that I would rather order it from Blinkit. That has what essentially led them to grow. Similarly, for example, if you're a girl, right, there are some natural products that you would essentially need on a day-to-day basis, जो तू भूल जाएगा, right? जो तू भूल जाएगी. So, for example, there might be a lipstick, there might be blush. I don't know the makeup stuff, but what they've been able to do is that anything which involves immediate consumption, cravings, etc., they've been able to onboard it on their platform, and they have been able to give higher throughput. As a result, they've been able to give higher throughput to their dark stores. Now, what's interesting is that I was actually watching an interview of the Blinkit CEO, Albinder, right? How are they able to get all of this inventory, get all of these SKUs? How are they able to predict demand about all of these SKUs? Because India is a very diverse country, right? Teko festivals mein kuch aur you would need specific things. For a normal day-to-day thing, you would need a specific things. So what they've been able to crack really well is their search, right? So I don't know if you've ever seen this or not, but I have done this multiple times, right? So whenever I need something, I first log on to Blinkit and I try to search it. If I don't find that search, I can basically request Blinkit to get this product. And if the number of requests are sort of increasing significantly, they can essentially onboard it onto their platform. So, for example, there are two interesting stories that I want to cover over here. The first is a couple of years back, Blinkit essentially saw like in Delhi NCR region, during Diwali, they saw a very high uptake for cow dung. People were searching cow dung, right? Now everyone was like, "Yaar, ये क्या हो गया?" Yeah, exactly. Everyone was like, "यार, इसके इतने ज़्यादा searches कहाँ से बढ़ गए?" And then they realized that Delhi, Bihar, इन सब जगहों पे क्या होता है ना, like,
is it for puja?
Exactly, it's for puja. Oh. It was Diwali and people were searching that for puja. Similarly, you're from Delhi, right? So तेको पता ही होगा that during Dhanteras there is a large rush of silver coins. ठीक है, Dhanteras के दिन पे, ठीक है, and you need to go into that shop और वहाँ पर तेको कम से कम 1 घंटे का लाइन तो लगना पड़ेगा, right? Correct. Now on Dhanteras day, a couple of years back, they saw once again a huge rush of people searching for silver coin, but they couldn't find it. And then that is how they started bringing in all of these products specific to a holiday, which we'll cover in detail in a couple of minutes.
And this is something I don't think a lot of players are doing now. I don't see this option coming on Swiggy, for example.
Exactly, it doesn't.
Request a new product.
It doesn't. Exactly, it doesn't, right? So because they've made a very good search system, they're able to essentially know कि किसी यूजर को कब क्या चाहिए होगा, and they're able to better predict demand than many other people, right? And as a result, their working capital requirement reduces significantly. Where Swiggy, Zepto, all of these players are replenishing their inventories every single week, they're doing it every single day, which is just mind-blowing if you think about it, right? Now coming to the second point, which is average order value. Now what we essentially talked about was कि यार impulse buy मेरे को चाहिए, ठीक है? One of the fastest growing categories across all quick commerce platform is basically electronics, right? It is electronic D2C brands, which is basically your Noise, Boat, all of these players. And if you think about it, there is a specific reason for that. So my personal example, right? We were about to record an episode and I just lost my earphones. I couldn't find them. And I was like, yaar, shit, what will we do? So what I did was that I went to Blinkit, ordered a Boat ke earphones, which I'm using right now. And it got delivered to me in like 10 minutes. And if you think about it, there are a lot of chargers which get lost. There are a lot of earphones which get lost, and you need them immediately for consumption. Or wahan se they have been able to crack higher order value. If you think about it, the reason why Flipkart, the reason why Amazon has an average order value of approximately 1,500 to 2,000 rupees, which is great, right, for any e-commerce platform. But the reason why they have such a high order value is because they've been able to crack electronics. So electronics ka natural GMV jo hai, it is in the range, it can, if it's a phone, it'll be a minimum 10, 15, 20,000 rupee phone. And earphones typically cost between 1,500 to 5,000 rupees. So by selling all of these electronic items, you're able to increase your average order value. And because अब जो है, you at least for these set of users that we are talking about, India 1 में Mexico वाला part, these users essentially need all of these things much faster than all other people. Someone could wait for maybe 2 days कि मेरे को उधर से सस्ता मिल रहा है. So that's a very interesting thing that they've been able to capture. And if you've seen recently, they had worked with Apple, they have worked with Samsung to essentially launch their new phones. So jahan par I have seen in Cyber Hub, right, people waiting in line outside the Imagine store for almost an hour to get the first iPhone, right? Yahan par you can get it delivered in less than 10 minutes, which is just mind blowing. And I think third thing which they've done pretty beautifully, and we'll probably cover this more in the marketing section, but curating festivals very, very well. So India में जो demand है ना, even I've seen that personally in a completely different segment, but India में demand is very dependent, is skewed to certain weeks or certain days. जहाँ पर तेरा फेस्टिवल होगा वहाँ पर तेरा डिमांड, योर एवरीथिंग essentially becomes 2x 3x आराम से. So normally if you're at 100 during Diwali specifically, it'll be 3-4x, because that's where people want to spend more money. So it's very important for you to make products available during that particular during that period of time. What they've recently done with Valentine's Day, where they had a single mode and a couples mode, right, which was just mind blowing, amazing, nice for a single people like me to essentially see someone's caring about us as well during a Valentine's Day, right?
and very strategically, if you think about it, they've actually captured all of India.
Both the segment,
that, right?
Yeah,
there's
exactly.
Single, and then there's couple, and then nothing else.
Yeah. Similarly, what they've done pretty well is with Diwali, what I was talking about, right? Dhanteras ke time pe you would find silver coins across various categories. During Diwali, you would find notebooks, pen. जो भी तेरा पूजा का सामान है ना, तेरे को आज के टाइम पे Blinkit से मिल जाएगा, which is just mind blowing, capturing the right demand with the right amount, with the right products for their users, right? So I'll just end this segment with a summary of how you can essentially build your product. So if any product manager or any marketing person wants to essentially build a product or improve their product, what are the learnings that we can get from Blinkit? So the first is that you really need to know what is your target segment or what is your target audience, right? Only then you can essentially build your product. You need to understand what is the frequency of your product, right? A lot of us want our product to have a natural frequency of weekly or daily use, right? But in reality, वैसा नहीं होता है. It really depends on your industry. So for example, if you're in fintech, probably 1 month would be the right way to look at your metrics. So it really depends on your industry. So figure that out. What is that natural frequency for your industry, for your app, or for your product? Third is that it is if it is a high frequency purchase, right? Retention rates actually matter a lot. The reason why Blinkit has been able to essentially crack such a retention rate without giving much of discounts, right, is because they have really cracked on what actually matters for their business, and that is having the right SKUs at the right time. So yeah, I think that is how I have essentially seen Blinkit crack their product scene, but would love to know the marketing side of things, because 1.4 million users is not a small feat, especially in India.
Absolutely. So coming to the marketing end of things right now, how I usually start looking at a strategy is obviously from the user level. And even though we sort of covered what a user is for these people, just to sort of again reiterate it, it's mostly urban dwellers who have good disposable income and who also don't have the time to actually bum around shopping for a lot of things, right? So this is your class of audience you're looking at, and with an average order value of 607, you are literally targeting the top tier, cream of the cream audience, metros, people in the urban areas, high disposable income, right? This is again the cream of the cream audience. Now what's interesting is that obviously Grofers went to Blinkit when it was acquired by Zomato. So they did a whole rebranding experiment, right? Because before that, Grofers was already known for groceries, right? But when you are rebranding, you want to basically position yourself as a completely new player, because now Blinkit is not only associated with groceries, it's associated with quick commerce, right? So in order to do that, again, they did the whole thing where they put out multiple campaigns to show that this is now we are Blinkit, it's from Grofers to Blinkit, whatever, right? So when you undergo a rebranding exercise, right, one thing that you have to do is something known to the marketing people as the rule of 7. Have you heard of this by any chance before?
No idea. No idea.
So just to basically put it right, the rule of seven basically means that a consumer needs to see your brand at least 7 times before they start buying from you, right? Because let's say if I'm Grofers and I now change myself to Blinkit, I can't just go around putting ads on, let's say, Facebook and Instagram targeting a consumer like Rakshit, because Rakshit is like, bro, what the fuck is Blinkit? Right? So what I have to do first is I have to go very broad, right? I have to show my cream of the cream audience, which is again top tier income, high income people. I have to pop up with the rebranding of Blinkit everywhere. And how you do it? Very simple. You go completely completely heavy on billboards, you completely go heavy on TV ads, you go heavy on newspapers, basically show the consumer Blinkit again and again and again, at least 7 times, until the time they start putting trust in you. And with selling products like iPhone, you probably need to show up even more in that case, right? So that is essentially what the rule of seven indicates.
Do you think rule of seven as a whole is more about impressions? Like how do you sort of measure that a consumer has seen you 6-7 times, or is it just like
so obviously correct, absolutely. I'll quickly explain this, right? So two types of marketing that people can approach. One is highly targeted marketing that most people prefer, like running ads. Basically, I can run ads and directly target a consumer like Rakshit because I know his income, I know what his interests are. So I do FB, I do Google, I do probably LinkedIn, I run social media. So I can target you very exactly, right? So that is something I can do. Then there is brand building, where I want to first educate the consumer about the presence of a player like Blinkit, and then start funneling them into my overall journey by then targeting ads to them, right? So the problem with a player like Blinkit is that when you're at such a large scale, because they obviously want to scale up really fast, if you start just doing very targeted ads, it's a very slow business, right? It's a very, very slow game. So what you do is you do a top to bottom approach, right? You start with very heavy top of the level, top of the awareness campaigns. You do like billboards, like the stuff that they've obviously done in the past. You target people with TV ads. You go all guns blazing on very top of the funnel awareness in the right cities, obviously considering where your consumer sits, and then you start running ads on very targeted levels, right? So for a company like Blinkit, this is exactly the kind of thing they should be doing, and it's exactly the kind of thing they've done, right? So that's what sort of is the whole rebranding experiment that they have managed to carry out. Bringing myself to the part of the whole billboard thing, right? Now this is something I found extremely intriguing, because not every brand can crack billboards, and I'll also explain why. For example, for my own company, I've done a billboard, and the problem is you can't track a damn thing from what happens with billboards, right? Billboards are excellent if you are a McDonald's, if you are a company that is on field, if you're a company selling like food, those kind of things. So billboards are excellent to drive traffic towards that direction. But when you are doing billboards for an online company, it's a completely different ballgame, right? Because you just can't track a damn thing. So instead, what you do, and this is what I spoke to someone in the BTL activity space, and they told me that with billboard, if you're an online first company, what you have to do, you have to go again all guns blazing on billboards. For example, when they started running billboards initially, when I was staying in Gurgaon, I was seeing Blinkit billboards everywhere. Right, I was seeing it all across town, near Cyber Hub, near golf course. I think recently they've also done a golf course thing. So everywhere I was seeing it, and I was like, okay, I got the point. Grofers now Blinkit, and that's amazing because that's exactly what the company wants to do. So it's a very big branding exercise, and you spend like almost 5 lakhs per billboard if it's in the right areas, right? Another thing is that most people, when they're running billboards, and I'm also very new to billboards, but it's a very intriguing marketing experiment to run, because what you should do for an online first company, when you're doing so many billboards, you have to go to the very high traffic prone areas. And if you think about it makes immediate sense, because you want to be in front of the consumer for the longest time. And the way you do that is by sitting in traffic when people are literally bored as hell, out of their minds, sitting in traffic for let's say hours together. That's where you do your billboard. So for example, recently they did a Tinder X Blinkit billboards in on Golf Course Road, and Golf Course also happens to be the most jammed up road in Gurgaon, right? So that is something they've cracked very well. But here's the interesting thing: Blinkit billboards aren't a billboard experiment. They're a social media campaign disguised as billboards, and I'll also explain why. Because, as I said, the first problem of trackability with billboards is just the fact that you don't know what's happening, right? You don't know if any consumers bought anything because they've saw the billboard, right? But what you can do is, if you convert that into a social media campaign somehow, you can now measure the impressions that has gone into the whole exercise and actually calculate some amount of what happened, what didn't happen. And that's exactly what they did. So, for example, Zomato plus Blinkit's the first billboard thing they put out back in 2022 or 2022, that got 900,000 likes on Instagram. That is one of the highest liked posts on Zomato or Blinkit for that matter.
I remember that. Yeah,
and 900,000 likes it is insane numbers. That's the kind of traction that means you've gone viral, and not to mention at least 1,000 other people reposting that. So obviously that's a different thing. Another thing, a very secret thing that most people don't know, is that a lot of under the table deals happen with influencers where let's say I don't want to say the Blinkit did this, but let's say I'm a company, I run billboards and I want to promote it. I go to, let's say, a marketing page on Instagram, or I go to a food page on Instagram, and I say that, wow, best meme in India right now with the billboard post, right? And I keep doing that across all pages. I pay the influencers a bit, and that's how I get the ball rolling. That's how I get the momentum rolling. This is also called moment. So that brings me to the second point that I feel Blinkit has really cracked, and I was pretty shocked at these numbers firstly, which is their SEO.
Okay.
Now, for the first time, if you think about it,
SEO.
right? I mean, do you think that an app should actually have SEO? Like, do you think that makes sense?
I mean, SEO can give you thoda bahut bump, but at least in the industry where I'm coming from, web mein a lot of things like, if you're an app first company, I don't know, SEO wouldn't give you that end conversion, at least from the industry where I'm coming from.
So let me actually tell you why you're wrong in this case, right? Here's the interesting thing. So Blinkit right now has almost 600,000 monthly traffic, and comparing that to Zepto or Swiggy, Instamart, they stand at 100K. So this is 6x traffic on Google or search engines alone, right? 600,000 traffic on a monthly basis. Pretty insane numbers. The second thing is I found out some of the things about their ranking. So the ranking for the fourth rank on keyword of ice cream, right? And that's just
ice cream.
They're also just ice cream, right? If you Google ice cream right now on incognito, the fourth rank is actually going to be Blinkit, right? And they're just selling ice cream for that
That's
matter.
Insane.
Now, here's a quick thought experiment. Ice cream right now has 200,000 search volume in India on a monthly basis at this point in time. Imagine if Blinkit can just capture 10% of that volume with being fourth, right? So every time, instead of me going to an app, I just type order ice cream online, right? And I find Blinkit. And out of these 200,000 people, even if 10% of them manage to click on this, I have 20,000 people with me. And out of that, even if 5% people, just 5%, actually download the app to just make the order, you now stand at 1,000 extra downloads with just the keyword of ice cream in one single month, right? And imagine that being spread across the multitude of products and SKUs they have. I mean, it is bonkers. Those are insane numbers, right? And I absolutely love this strategy because if you think about it, right, if I don't have an app, if I don't know Blinkit, Swiggy already, the first thing I'm going to do as a consumer is not go to App Store and type order groceries. I'm going to go to Google and type order groceries online. And the first couple of results, whatever comes, I'm going to probably go ahead. Now I'm redirected to the app and I probably go and make some downloads, right? So that's why I think they've done the SEO game very well. There's a whole ASO game called App Store Optimization also that they have cracked very well. So if you type grocery on the App Store right now on Google or App Store on iOS App Store, they're ranking at least the first or the second. Now that's a consequence of you having high downloads and high ratings. But again, they've cracked the whole SEO and ASO market extremely well, and I think it's working in their favor big time with like a big market share they've captured. right?
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
and that brings me to the final strategy that I found very interesting, which is performance marketing, right? Now we were discussing how festival seasons happens to be their main selling time, and if you think about it, and even being in my own business in like the fintech space, I know that there are cycles where without spending a dime in marketing, you just get insane amounts of ROI, right? Especially your Jan, Feb, March months are great for fintech because people are
Yeah,
wrapping up their
yeah.
tax season,
Absolutely.
and they buy
Absolutely.
like crazy, right? So the interesting
Yeah.
thing I found out, Rakshit, so when I was searching for what's Blinkit doing at this point in time, I realized that they're not actually running a single Google ad on cigarettes or ice cream, because again they're ranking fairly well. They don't need to
Acha.
run those Google ads, right? However, they are running very heavy festival campaigns, right? And if you again think about it, these are the cycles when they earn the most. The intent is the highest, and when the intent is the
Yeah.
highest, right? All the money you incur,
Yeah.
your ROI sort of comes out somehow, right? Because there are months where you could probably spend a lot and acquire consumers, but they just don't convert. But if your conversion
Yeah.
rates increase, your ROI automatically drastically increases, right? So this is the best time, like Holi, for example. At this point in time, I'm just going to put up some screen grabs over here. They are running crazy advertisements on buy Holi products, buy Holi on Facebook, on Instagram, all just Holi stuff, right? And
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's sort of summing up the whole marketing game. A great billboard campaign, actually disguised into, I mean, it is actually a social media campaign, to be very fair. Excellent performance marketing, obviously, and a very very powerful SEO game. So, with that said, this is a wrap on today's episode. And if you've been enjoying such kind of episodes, we actually run a community called Perspectify Community on WhatsApp. You can join there for free, and we'll be discussing a lot of more case studies, more questions, answering some of your questions, and also, cross questioning guests that come on our podcast in the community itself. So, make sure you join the community. The link is going to be in the description box. And yeah, that's us signing off for the day. Have a good one.